May I now invite Dr. Jiten Sharma to start the discussions?
Hello, everyone. I hope I am audible, although thousands of miles away, as Mr. Varindra mentioned. This is new normal, and we all hope that this normal is temporary. Let me start with some good news. I work in the field of medical technology. I make ventilators and COVID diagnostic RT-PCR kits and MRI machines. And if I am permitted to share my screen, I would only wish to share with you, if the host can please enable my screen sharing.
Yeah, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I want to show you something exciting, something which is not a PowerPoint presentation.
Dr. Sharma, you are host now, sir.
Yes. I'm showing you some live CCTV cameras. As you see behind me, I run a zone, a city of 8 miles. And this city of 8 miles has hundreds of manufacturers, researchers, innovators, startups, all making medical technology. And I want to show you some live pictures from a CCTV camera that I have on my system here. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Now, I'll go to some of the screens here. This is one of my many live COVID RT-PCR diagnostic kit assembly. This assembly line uses a large number of Duquesne ultrasonic welding systems, which are housed at the back. All these systems come from European Union. And so while India is today producing, just in my zone, 500,000 RT-PCR COVID diagnostic kits, we wouldn't be able to do it, but for an assembly that's actually coming from European Union. Let me give you another example. This is my tool room for making of ventilators. You see the machines moving. The machine that just moved, if you can see my cursor, is from UK. This machine is actually from Ireland. And if you see some of my analytical lab instruments, none of them are from India. Most of them are from Germany, and some of them are from France. I can keep showing you some of these beautiful live pictures as we speak. These are my scientific laboratories, which we use for testing of medical devices. The building that you see with a conical structure, that's my implant testing center, run and operated by TÜV Rheinland from Germany. These are my hundreds of factories, each producing a different medical product, most of them having machines from EU and UK. I'll stop sharing my screen just to bring home a point that in today's world, I don't think 1% or 2% or 10% of trade actually gives the real picture. Because this machine of ultrasonic welding of COVID kits, which does 10,000 oscillations per second, allowing an Indian company to produce RT-PCR kits so that we can ship it back to UK, this machine might have been 0.001% of the entire trade, but it's actually the enabler of the whole trade. And therefore, since the globalized technologies are changing and the human interface with technologies are changing, our priorities in society are changing, we need to realize that being important of value chain is more important than claiming a share of value chain, because we don't know how the chain will flip. We don't know who will supply what to whom. And therefore, we must grow in our open-mindedness and acceptance of the fact that if a machine can create a value chain of a product which will serve global health, irrespective of whether the patient is in UK or India, that small component that triggers this is a very critical component of partnership. Now, when we started COVID diagnostic kits manufacturing, we needed something called primer and something called probe. Those who are microbiologists or biologists in this group would know that primers and probes are necessary ingredients to make an RT-PCR COVID kit. Now, somebody needs to supply us the authentic primer and probe. And guess who was that? That was a company called EuropeIndia40 and a company called EICBI, both based out of UK and Germany. So while today, UK or Germany might not be producing 500,000 COVID kits like India, they are actually enablers in what we are doing, and we are enablers in what they would be doing. And therefore, the reason why I showed you guys live pictures and not a presentation was to bring home 3 points. One, within the European Union, we need clarity on which part of European Union, which country within European Union and the UK now specializes in what. This clarity, to some extent, we have from Germany and the UK, but we struggle when it comes, for example, the ventilators require sensors. It requires valves. Now, we really don't know whether it is Netherlands, or is it Spain, or is it France. But when it comes to precision instrumentation, we know it's Germany. When it comes to testing, we know it's Germany. When it comes to biologics, we know it's UK. So a specialization identification of value chain spread across European Union and UK will be incrementally useful to our growing partnerships. Point number 2, the volume of production required in situations like pandemic may not be compatible with the workforce and the cost of the workforce in many parts of the European Union. And therefore, keeping in mind factors like pandemics, factors like cancers which have been neglected during the pandemic for a whole year globally, because factors like orthopedic surgeries which didn't happen across the world because the hospitals were either shut down or given for COVID care, we need to document the ingredient value chain that goes into epidemics, cancers, non-communicable diseases, and join our forces so that we can actually bring out a global partnership. And number 3, European Union and institutions like ours, which is part of the government in India, could potentially create a EU-UK-India innovation corridor, which is not a routine innovation discussion, which brings in maybe once in a month specific individuals on specific projects of public importance, whether it is renewable energy, climate change, medical technology, and so on, so that we could, across this corridor, the EU-India innovation corridor, could have 3 centers of excellences identified, one in European Union, one in UK, and one in India, which could coordinate these activities on a concurrent basis so that we all can rise up to the occasion when the situation demands. We did that without much of planning, more as an ad hoc during COVID, but we need to be prepared as a team. And therefore, before I hand over back to my friends, Sujit and others, let me welcome you to good times. We have had enough of frustrations, blames, criticisms. There is enough to do. there is enough to do for everyone, provided we don't start claiming a percentage share, but starting to understand that our presence in the value chain is temporary, big or small. And once we are part of that value chain, depending upon the scenarios and contexts, our extent of engagement changes, but together we stand as a stronger, bigger, more human global team. With that, thank you very much, and over to you.
Yeah, Jitendra Sharma ji, can you please pass the host control to me? And I would request Ms. Anupriya to go on mute. There was some noise coming in, Ms. Anupriya. And thank you, Jitendra Sharma ji.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. I think what you showed about your factory and the shortages and the RT-PCR kits, it was very impressive. Very impressive to see what you showed. Let's go to Poland, and may I call on Mr. Adam to talk about his experience and what does he believe that the East European markets and the Indian markets, which are very similar, and what I have seen in my visits to Hungary and Czech Republic and some of these places have also very, very similarities in culture. How do you think that this thing can actually change and bring the business forward for both of us?
Unfortunately, we don't share the climate. I wish we had the climate in common. However, the climate is not among the similarities. However, sir, and all the honorary speakers and guests, in my opinion, Eastern Europe, Central Eastern Europe, however you name it, and Poland as its heart or its integral element, is right now in a pretty good moment. Is in a pretty good moment because of two reasons. One of them is the fact that paradoxically Brexit, however, I wanted to make it clear, I think that in the long run, it will have negative impact both on Europe, both on the European Union and on Great Britain, despite the illusion that short-term someone might benefit by creating bilateral agreements instead of multilateral ones. I think in the end, it will have a negative impact short term. However, we can see a process that because of some EU level regulations that especially capital that's active in the offshoring segment, it's flowing into Central Eastern Europe. Unfortunately for us right now, Lithuania is the biggest beneficiary of the capital that's abandoning Britain from the offshoring segment. However, Poland is benefiting from those processes as well. Also, some changes in the global supply chain that were caused by the pandemic situation, they work for the benefit of economies and structures that are still cost competitive, export driven, and that have cost competitiveness in those segments, especially because of the prices of talent, prices of work, and some other factors. And Poland is such a export-driven production logistics powerhouse with significant factor of cost competitiveness, and that's why some changes, or maybe to be more precise, amendments in the global supply chain system work for our benefit, at least short term. Generally, our connection with India is very close because I mentioned it during several speeches that because without Indian capital, which would not be in this place where it is right now, in the times of very deep economic issues after the post-communist economic transformation, where there was double-digit unemployment, Indian company called Infosys was the first one to invest in Łódź in central Poland area, creating a huge service center, which generally changed the perception of central Poland on the investment map. And with investment of Infosys, there came another. So we owe a lot to Indian business, and this process caused unusual ties with India, and besides India, another Asian countries, and relatively large, couple thousand people, Indian diaspora appeared, and we are very proud and happy that that it's working and so active. Especially there is one very active member, Mr. Amit Lat, who is active in all the chambers and in many other fields, and I'm very grateful to him because he's doing a wonderful job. And I also believe that because of some processes that affected EU, I mean, global role of China in the entire trade chain, I think that there will be larger and larger space for Central European and especially Polish economic cooperation with India.
So, Adam, you believe that there will not be any added advantage to the East European countries where the India can actually go and set up factories and build it much quicker? You see, the earlier, a lot of companies of India went to UK, set up a shop, and they had the access to the Europe. Now they will have to find another country in Europe where this can be extended. And I think that gives a lot of opportunities to some of these countries where you come from.
I fully agree, sir, and that was one of my intentions. I believe that there is big space for it. However, the production segment in Great Britain was not as deep as it is in Poland, because some time ago we could notice a significant deindustrialization of Great Britain, while Poland is fully, and just maybe not fully, but to a large extent, industry driven. And I think that still the combination of factors of competitiveness and central location logistics benefits places Central Europe, and especially Poland as its larger country, as a place that has all the tools and all the resources to be such safe haven and such address for those type of activities. And I think that the role of Indian capital in this part of the world will be growing.
Thank you, Adam. Can I now invite Aryan to put up his points for all of us to continue discussions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Selak. And I completely echo my fellow politician, Adam, about the EU structure and the UK structure. Look, I won't go specifically into numbers, but as you know, I've just asked a question to Ursa about the priority list of India in terms of where India stands for EU trade. And she said it top of the priority. And that's very important, because as long as India, in the minds of the EU governing body, would stand as a trusted business partner, that's when the collaboration starts in scientific, high-tech fields. We've just seen from Mr. Jitendra, Mr. Sharma, about the production of the vaccines and the test kits. It's fantastic to see that India is playing a global role in fighting this battle where we all stand at the same place. So I think it's good to see that. But one thing that Member of Parliament, Mr. Samantha, just raised was the only concern I see in terms of the trade relationship is that EU tend to favor the EU companies by regularizing more and more standards rather than the international standards. So for example, there's an example that Mr. Sharma just gave about the mangoes export. So I think India has been maintaining the standards, but when it comes to regulations, I mean, standards means nothing. I mean, you could just put an additional standard and say we could just reject the import factor, and that would benefit the EU companies. So I think you should show some sympathy. Indians are known one of the best law-abiding citizens around the world, one of the best work culture that we manage, unlike China, if you look at the work culture for workers. So I think the standards in terms of regulations, I think regularizing the standards should be a bit relaxed for India, especially in order to improve the trade standards. I think as long as the trade standards improves, I think then they can put in extra regulations for that one. And that's one thing. And look, I think EU has done a fantastic job in terms of releasing the EU Blue Card, which enables high-tech skilled employees, educationalists to go and work in Europe. And UK is now doing the same thing by bringing back the points-based immigration. So it allows people to come to UK, come to Europe to work. I think that should be enhanced. That should even create more visas for educated people to come and work. And that improves a lot of trade relationships as well. That's one thing. And finally, moving back to UK-EU exports and imports, I think India was always seen as a back office rather than the real manufacturing capabilities. I think that's a general mindset for most of the world. I know Adam just gave a fantastic example about how Infosys created a great example that they said to the whole world, look, Poland is a great place to invest. And that's where Indian capabilities come. Obviously, the economic disparities are quite huge in India. But if you look at the transformation that the country has been through after the new government, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has been fantastic. So I think, look, India in the next 30 years would define the world how democracies would rule their internal relations. So I think, I'm sure EU, India, UK, India could be one of the global's best partners, like you see Germany and France or Eastern European partners. So looking forward to that, really. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. One thing I want to honestly share, and since all the member of parliaments are here, I go to US, I apply for a visa, they look at me, they test me left, right, and center, and they give me a visa for 10 years. Whether I go for a business or I go for a holiday, I got a visa. My experience in last 2 years for both traveling to Europe as well as to UK, every time I've given a very good visa, and I have to fill how many countries I visited for a UK visa. I tell you, it's a nightmare, and I'm given after that 6 months visa. I don't think that both these regions are actually trying to improve trade, improve people-to-people movement. We are still afraid of each other. And obviously, when you do it, the government of India does the same, and it's not helping. This has to change. Either, you can test me 3 times, 30 times, 40 times, then close it. I've traveled thrice to UK, 5 times to Europe. And next time I go, I still need a 6 months visa. Come on, I will avoid it. No.
Yeah, you're right. I think that's a key part, because that brings people together, trade together, tourism together.
And speed, just take a ticket and go. These days, 8 hours I land in London, 7 hours I land in France. It's so easy to travel. And then, if I have to go through this, then I say, come on, leave it. So my personal view, I don't know how easy it is for you to put this across. Let me now call upon the great lady, Charlie, to talk about her research and talk about how things can change. Welcome. You're mute.
Yes, am I audible now?
Yes.
Yes. Very good evening to all of you present here. And thank you to EICBI for inviting me as a panelist on this very interesting webinar alongside such distinguished other speakers. Since my vantage point has been largely in Brussels and India, I'm going to talk about Brexit's impact on EU-India relations. And I'm going to be stressing more on the geopolitical aspect of things given my background in international relations. So in my opinion, I think Brexit is really an opportunity for India to restructure its relations with both the EU as well as the UK. We know historically that it was often Britain, France, and Germany that carried the burden of European foreign and defense policy. And now with Britain out of the EU, this considerably reduces somewhat the heft of the EU, whether it's on the political front, the economic front, or the security front. And also this fracturing of Europe and the ensuing divisions in the West that we've seen. We also know how the transatlantic relationship has significantly frayed under Donald Trump's presidency. All of this have had implications for India's geopolitical environment, which has become a lot more uncertain, especially with an assertive China at its borders. But what we've also seen is that Brexit has pushed the EU to introspect, not only on divisions within the European Union, but also on the EU's wider place in the world. The EU now seems to recognize that it can no longer only remain a soft or a normative power. And in 2019, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen emphasized that she wanted to give Brussels a more geopolitical role. And in fact, we are seeing an EU that's trying to step up its game by expanding its global ambitions and also attempting to add hard power dimensions to its economic power. So I would say, in a sense, we're seeing a sort of recalibration of European foreign policy taking place, as well as a more introspective and ambitious EU taking shape. Now, how does all of this impact EU-India relations, you ask? Well, as we know, the UK was traditionally India's gateway to Europe. But, because whether we like it or not, the colonial past has been a fundamental anchor. But lately, what we're also seeing is that the EU and India seem to be strategically converging a lot more. The contestations that have emerged between the US and China have had implications for middle powers in the global order, such as EU and India, that are now trying to navigate the space in between and trying to find their voice in this emerging order. The EU and India both now know that they can no longer rely so much on American leadership. They're both wary of, Chinese efforts to unilaterally shape geopolitics, and they're looking for like-minded partners elsewhere. On China as well, we are seeing much greater EU-India alignment. Traditionally, both the EU and India pursued policies of cooperation and engagement with China. But last year, both India and the EU have somewhat experienced rude awakenings on China, somewhat of a change of heart. India, of course, was the recipient of a deadly border attack by Chinese troops in the Galvan Valley. In Europe, China was conducting what was being called mask diplomacy at a time when Brussels couldn't come up with an adequate response to help countries that were initially hit hard by the virus. So China has, in a sense, been opportunistically exploiting divisions within Europe. And this sounds rather similar to India's own neighborhood of South Asia, where there have been concerns of the Chinese debt trap. So both the EU and India are now re-examining their relationships with Beijing and also trying to diversify their partnerships to balance it. And as a result, I would say the EU-India strategic partnership that has historically struggled to move beyond trade and economics is finally becoming strategic. We can see the importance the EU places on India in many of its policy documents now. I would say the 2018 EU strategy on India is really a game changer in this regard, because it seems to view India no longer from a peripheral lens, but more as a central partner. Crucially, I would say the strategy calls India a geopolitical pillar in a multipolar Asia that's important for maintaining the balance of power in the region. And this is really quite a long way from the 2016 EU global strategy, which primarily viewed India from the prism of economics. And I would say, while all of this is not a direct consequence of Brexit, the fact is that Brexit is happening alongside much greater EU-India strategic convergence. In fact, since the referendum in 2016, India has become a priority country for both the EU as well as the UK to work with. The appetite for cooperation in Brussels since then has substantially increased. And even within India, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar has said that he places relations with the EU as a top priority. And against this, positive momentum and backdrop, the EU-India summit took place last year virtually. And I think it couldn't have happened at a better time when imagination and political will are a lot stronger on both sides. And a multitude of issues were discussed, ranging from greater multilateral cooperation to setting up a ministerial dialogue on trade, to climate change. So finally, I think India is realizing the benefits of working and dealing with the European Union as a counterpart, in addition to its strong relations with many EU member states. So Brexit, I would say, has been an opportunity for India to better integrate with the continent, and this is indeed what seems to be happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Arun, we are doing well on time, right?
A time check, we are doing well there. You can carry on and have cross-section of questions because multiple points.
Yes,
that's
what I was thinking. So can I now open the forum for questions from the audience? We'll be happy. You can put it on the chat box, or you can come online and say it. And by the time you think your questions, I can try and say something on the way we are going. In my 40 years of industry career, one thing I have seen, this works on integration and disintegration. You see, if you look at the models earlier, we started to make ASEAN, Europe, EU came into existence, South America trade bloc came into existence, South Asia came into existence. When the going is good, everything goes well. When the times become tough, the things start to get here and there and people run helter-skelter. End of the day, it is the family, the good and the bad. We have to all learn to live with each other. That's the only way this business models can go forward. I now open the questions from the audience.
If there are no questions, I would also like to call upon the panelists themselves to seek, because multiple perspectives have now come into picture. So would any one of you want to ask any additional questions? If not, then I would also like to call upon our delegates to come on board and introduce themselves, because one of the points of conducting this mini summit is also to create the networking. So why don't you, Bhartiji Man, if you have time, or Gunjan, can you also introduce yourself here, Gunjan Lodha?
Okay, so in that case, Arun, let's continue our discussions. I will start talking to Aryan. Aryan, what do you think we can do to take this forum of discussion to the next level? Can we include some of the MSMEs of your area where you are there, and we can have some of the industry, because we'll have to start to break it down. We'll have to take education, talk about education, because I personally believe that education in UK will become significantly more important, because both America and Australia is getting into some kind of a difficulties now because of the turbulence, the way they are seeing it. So UK next sessions will become important for the Indian students. Now, can we start to think of a session generated through on these similar lines to focus only on, say, education? Mute, you're mute.
Yeah, on me. Yeah, thank you, Varendraji. Absolutely, I think if you look historically, I mean, going back to Shari's point, she made a very valid point. The colonial history is a bit emotional, but I think we have to move away from the colonial history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all history. Yeah.
It's all history. Back then, you see a lot of people came to the UK for education. They settled down. They became business owners. And it's funny that I was speaking to another person who wanted to come to the UK and to study, but for some reason his visa got rejected. So his gateway to UK was from Poland. So he studied in Poland, married a Polish girl, so they moved to the UK. So I guess some way or the other, there's a connection to Europe and to the UK, but the ultimate destination for majority of the Indians would prefer to stay in the UK just for the fact because of the history and also English. But incredible transformation within the Eastern Europe, especially than the Western Europe, is that when I traveled to any of the Eastern Europe, everyone could speak English. It could be Poland, Romania, Bulgaria, name what, Lithuania, Latvia, and everything. So I think if you look at the recent courses being taught in English, a lot of majority of the students come outside Europe rather than within the Europe, especially for the English courses. I think that's a big change in terms of attracting Indians, especially for the European Unions. I think so. In terms of the policy making for the EU and obviously the UK is fully English. There's no issues with that. I think EU can then probably move away from the local languages and teach English for their courses. That would be good attraction for India. In terms of the UK, I think there's lots need to be done in terms of the educational relations with India. I understand, they come here, they have a 2 years visa to do it. But I think if you look at the European program, what do you call it? Where the exchange program, there's something called the exchange. There's a technical word for it. Erasmus. Sorry, Erasmus. You're right. I think those kind of schemes should be introduced with the Indian universities so that you're not physically moving your country, but you're in collaboration with another university. So that you don't technically need a visa to come and spend a lot of money to do that. So a lot of movements between the students would happen that way. I think that's something that the EU and the UK should probably come up with, a joint venture partnership with Indian universities or the Indian colleges or Indian institutions. I think that would be a very good policy to attract people, but also to have a cross section of the EU and the UK students to go and experience India as well. That's my opinion.
Adam, would you like to add something?
You pretty much exploited the topic. There's not that much to add. I just wanted to say that, in my opinion, and from what I see in recent months, and not only months, but also years, in my opinion, India, having in mind its capacity, potential, is actually has no alternative to global trade and to participate and make its input and share in global economy and supply in global supply chains higher and higher. In my opinion, because of what's happening with China, and in my opinion, the US will keep its, let's say, reserved course towards China. In my opinion, it creates huge spaces for India. I can say from a Polish perspective that the cooperation was always very good. The fact that India, it's world's biggest democracy, definitely makes the cultural element closer and the dialogue in many elements easier. So I see that some processes that have started will be deepening. And from what I see, having in mind not only Infosys, but also Tech Mahindra, WNS, and other global Indian companies that circulate around Polish economy, not as a outsourcing destination, but they make foreign direct investments in Central Europe. So it means that they are fully mature global corporate entities. It's a sign of its own. So I just keep my fingers crossed for those ties to be even more tightened. I don't see I don't see an alternative course. And, you know, Poland is a growing economy that has still not developed corporate entities sufficiently strong to conquer global markets. In my opinion, its prosperity is dependent to a large extent on both global trade and, second, the willingness and ability of global corporate entities to enter our market and stimulate growth by those processes. So seeing no alternative, I just will keep my fingers crossed for the process to be going as quickly and as smoothly as possible.
Thank you, Adam. Dr. Jiten, I want to throw a challenge. I want you to become the largest manufacturer of what you're producing in the world. What do you need from EU and the UK to do it for you?
To become the biggest is not our goal. To become valuable is our goal. So I wouldn't take this challenge at all. But if you tell me if we can be a good team to support manufacturers of key medical products, these startups. I recently met a startup from Germany who is co-investing here in our campus. There are only 3 companies in the world that make a pacemaker. This startup out of a university would be a 4th one. And I would really convert your challenge into an opportunity by building a team where we can support these startups, doing exciting work for human health across the EU and India, to put them on a value chain roadmap where they can do R&D, we can do the manufacturing, they can do manufacturing, we can supply key ingredients, we can design the prototypes, and they can supply us the circuits depending upon our strengths. So we need very specific examples to prove the wisdom that all of us are sharing. And I think if there is something that can tell the world how powerful this congregation is and how powerful the vision behind this gathering is, it would be those specific examples and outcomes that we can bring in next 2 years.
You know, Dr. Jiten, you heard the Madame Priyanka. What did she say? She said, you know, it will only be win-win for both of us, both the parties, then the things go. What I meant, what I was trying to push you for, to propose a value proposition. You know, by saying I will help you to do it, it really doesn't work. My son doesn't listen to me if I go and tell him like that. You know, we need to create a business proposition for UK or for EU country. You know, in EU there are so many countries. You know, you'll have to really find a partner and then take this forward, because it'll be nice that your technology takes these products and manufacturing. Because you see, today it is COVID, tomorrow it will be something else. You know, we already are talking about some pork diseases happening in China, which is in the news. So, and recently we had the bird flu. So I think the world will continue to face such challenges. And what I meant to drive you was to put through a blueprint so that it could be then taken to a very different level. That's all I was suggesting.
Absolutely. No, you are right. And that's why I mentioned in my remarks earlier also that what you're saying is extremely right. But the requirement from a human health and medical technology is very dynamic. As you rightly mentioned, we don't know what's coming in. And in fact, we don't know even what is with us at the moment with neglected tropical diseases, cancers, and so on. And therefore, we need platforms in UK, EU, India as nodal points that can engage with partners based on those specific examples as we come across them.
Dr. Jiten, the biggest problem now the industry is facing is overweight, like I am. You know, find some vaccine that weights can go down. You know, you will become a winner of the world, no? Jokes apart, Dr. Lotra, you have some points to add?
I'm going to add something on the previous question that you asked regarding students. I think that's a really important point. I think the EU in general needs to increase its visibility in India through, you know, better public diplomacy, because what I've noticed is there's not enough awareness or knowledge about the EU in India at all. Of course, the UK doesn't suffer from this problem, but the EU, given that it's such a complex supranational institution that sits above all these 27 member states, there really isn't much knowledge at all. Member state knowledge definitely exists in India. India's got great relations with France, in particular, with Germany as well. But like when I first moved to Brussels in 2015 to work, and when I told people I'm going to work in Brussels because it's the capital of the EU, they were like, "Oh, what is the EU?" Even amongst well-educated Indians, I would say, who are very well versed with politics, who are very well versed with India's foreign relations with the US, with China, with the UK, but the EU really seems to be in the public eye totally on the back burner. And even in Brussels, when I first moved initially in 2015, there was hardly any talk of India. Now that has substantially changed in the last 2-3 years, especially with Brexit, with the with relations with the US fraying, with problems with China coming up. There's definitely a lot more focus on India now, but that too I feel seems to be more only at the very high levels. Amongst the public, understanding is still low. So I still think students are the best way for both the EU and India to conduct public diplomacy through better outreach, etc., to raise awareness in each other's constituencies, etc. I mean, the EU is one of the greatest examples of political and economic integration, even with Brexit, right? And in India, we could really do with examples like that, given how South Asia is the least integrated region in the world, given how SAARC is constantly floundering because of India's relationship with Pakistan. So I think there's so many lessons to learn from EU integration at both a political and an economic level, but it really needs to start with better awareness and knowledge. That's where I'll stop.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. If there is no other comment, I would like to summarize the discussion of today, and we can call it a day. Arun, is that okay?
Yeah, it's possible, like Mr. Adam did bring out the investments Indian companies have made in Europe in setting up captive centers and all. And as you're aware, Lord Moylan earlier also spoke about UK becoming more and more services oriented than earlier 70 years ago, where it was dependent more on the mining and minerals and manufacturing. So when you look at it from that particular angle, and India is also becoming quite strong in technology. And are there any comments from the panelists on the directions in which you see this moving, especially the technological innovations?
I just have one query / submission. In terms of intellectual property and patent filings,
yeah,
which is very easy now because it's EU patent. Brexit, what challenges does it throw? Not on the prospective patents which are yet to be filed, but the patents who have been filed and have not crossed their 20-year period. How would we share that intellectual property?
I think so. I had the same issue, Mr. Sharma. So in terms of the patent, because when you filed before the 31st, before the transition period, it's valid throughout the EU states, including the UK. After the transition period, I guess you would get 2 certificates that would be valid, unless it's a new one where you have to file separately for UK and EU. But I think there would be a provision that will come in to the scene very soon, or probably would have come in very soon.
I think there's clarity on the past patents which are still alive and are being used by the industry for production is extremely critical at this point in time.
That's still alive. That's still alive now. That's still alive.
Yep, wonderful. I think so. Let me try and summarize the discussion for the day so that.
Sorry, this is Prem here from Pontac.
Yep.
If I can make one quick submission, if I may, with
Yeah,
regards
please.
to innovation exchange, and also we spoke about entrepreneurship and also in terms of education. I think from a COVID perspective, what was all translated into is it is a global economy, coming together digitally, right? So especially on the student fold, what we have witnessed is students are, in simple terms, students from various universities are coming together outside after they come out of the college and try and create something new. Now, with all this innovation exchange happening, relaying some of the conversations earlier, and also in terms of centers of excellence that Mr. Sharma did mention, that we could create across UK, India, and Europe. My humble submission is we need to explore the opportunity of bringing the various universities where we can try and bring in innovation exchange right at the college level to create spin-offs coming from colleges across EU, India, and UK coming together, wherein you have an idea coming out of a European Union university, but they could have co-founders or co-creators from India and UK. So that will really fuel innovation exchange. That's my humble submission.
Yeah, great.
A very good point. Very good point. Thank you.
Very good point. I think this is what the Germany corporate structure aligns with the education sector, where they're bringing from outside. I think that's something. You're right, Prem. I think that's a great policy in the education sector that would really boom both India, EU, and the UK.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, one other thing, if I also make one other submission, is when we are speaking to the FCDO or the FCO earlier, not many institutions in India or other ways know of the UK export finance that is available with the UK. All they have to do is, if there's a multi-million pound project or whatever be it, as long as a company, irrespective of where they are from, and in this case, India or European Union, if they're able to kind of demonstrate that 20%, just 20% of the products or the services are coming out of the UK government will be able to provide substantial finance at 0% for many years. So not many people really know about this, right? So we had to actually work with the FCDO, the Foreign Commonwealth Office, and create webinars to bring that to bear for our own incubating companies or our own startups in our portfolio. And this quite nicely segues to what we spoke in terms of UK becoming a services-oriented economy. And it only makes sense because you just need to demonstrate 20% from the UK. And that's what Innovation Exchange is all about. And you're talking about, let's say, a 10 million pound project or a 100 million pound project, and the UK government backing it at 0% interest. That's huge. I'll stop there.
Thanks for bringing that out, Prem. And with your permission, Sehwagji, I would, because we still have a couple of minutes, anyone else, because we would also like to promote networking here and also seek opinions. A lot of people are
we didn't see you. We should have seen your picture as well, no? You're making such good points. Didn't put your video on. Yeah.
I could very well do that. I didn't want to scare you all away, so now you see me, right? So there are two things that are uncontrollable in the UK right now. One is the virus itself. Second is the growth of hair. So yeah, that's the point.
Yeah, you can see Mr. Modi and be happy about it. You can't grow more than that. So it's all right.
That's where I draw my inspiration from, sir.
Well, more than that, the weather as well. So
yeah. No, it's been interesting, really interesting discussions, and I'm sure the organizers can take it forward. What I liked about Lord Marvin saying about that the UK has moved from the manufacturing economy to actually service-oriented, global integrated services, banking and many others. What surprises me that everything goes on and pound sterling keeps getting stronger and stronger, and we have to spend more Indian rupees to go there and buy a ticket or a sandwich, so that continues to be a challenge. But I think he made strong points, and what I liked about the whole deliberation he did, that we still, despite all the problems, we grew by 11%, which was very nice. We created 500,000 jobs. I think that's another one. And I think we are closer to UK in terms of having some kind of a trade agreement or trade understanding. So I personally believe, and which is what I have seen in my imports business, which I've been doing for Nestle for South Asia. You see, it's about company to company business. You see, industry, like we had lots of factories in Asia, and we were importing a lot of those products. But it was very difficult for us to ship many products from India to Asian countries. It was very little. In fact, if you look at the story of the Asian treaty or a treaty with Korea, it was mainly products coming from these countries to India. Very little actually went out.
Yeah.
Things started to change. Today, now India has become the largest exporter of small cars and small car parts. So today, if you are trying to see the game, like what Dr. Jiten showed, that he has created all these ventilators, we were not making them.
Yeah.
They were not required in the number. So I believe that the points, the way the evolution of Indian industry is taking place today. You see, we never had so many startups, and there was no Flipkart to challenge Amazon. So you can see those kind of new challenging opportunities are coming, and what we need is more focused discussions to overcome the Madam Ursha's problem that we are only 2% and a 10th trading partner for EU. I believe this needs to change. I'm sure we'll have to do more focused discussions, maybe do more sector specific discussions, find out what's happening, and then go back to your governments to do practical one. Because I give you one example. India still is not able to import pet food from US. Because when we were making the rules for the pet food, we actually followed the European rules. And European rules are stricter than the US rules. So the way it happened that some of the words which were to be given on the veterinary certificates, even today we have not been able to sort out with the US. What amazes me, that same US company can supply to Europe with the same certificate, because Europe also asks for the same certificate from the US manufacturers. But when it comes to India, we are not able to get it. So these are some of those bottom line problems which actually hampers the trade. Sometimes we talk about that industries are not meeting, the ministers are not meeting. It's not the minister who actually decides. It starts from the joint secretary and the under secretary, the low level, and the industry forums goes and creates these problems. I think that's, if we can do in a smaller level, my friend, it'll make a lot of changes. Believe me, it'll make a lot of changes. It's about step by step clearing things. This is how I believe in this, and maybe you could help.
Sehwag sir, I would like to add a point here. Mr. Adam is here.
Yeah.
So the example of textiles, apart from textiles, Mr. Adams, Poland, given that Indo-Polish Chamber of Commerce and Industry is working very closely between India and Poland, there have been the certification problems have been overcome, and the new trade channels have been created. And I've seen a lot of textiles trade happening because of a specific initiative in between the countries also, apart from on the larger EU scale. And Mr. Adam also took Mr. Amijit's name. So all these people, people like them also are working at an individual and country to country level. Thanks for adding up. Please, sir, over back to you.
Thank you.